I can go ride 150 miles with 10,000 feet of elevation and still get home okay and feel all right. You know, like I started doing races this last couple of years, and I'm like beating lots of people half my age pretty quickly. So it's been pretty interesting. But I've been on like a specific sports nutrition protocol.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's pretty simple. And I eat as much as I want. And but yeah, I debate ketos and carnivores on YouTube and stuff like that.
I did not know that. We got to have a conversation dedicated to diet. I did not know that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, we should do that. Let's set that up because that's going to be really fun. But go ahead.
Yeah, most of my debates are hostile, and I'm kind of getting sick of it. You know, like I'd rather have a reasonable conversation about the stuff.
Well, I think, Jeffrey, to your point, this is something that bothers me a lot. It's something that bothers me about conservatism, you know, the modern Republican Party and diets. Just about anything is like you have these two extremes, right? And there's different ends of the spectrum. And a lot of these things, like these dietary belief systems and ideologies, go hand in hand with political affiliation. Yeah. When we look at vegans tend to be Democrats tend to be vegans, and then the conservative, sort of more conservative, traditional leaning people tend to be carnivores. But within that span, you have a lot of people on the carnivore side of things who are being way over the top. There's this guy who, again, he's in great shape. He professes a lot of good ideas, a lot of true things about meat. But his name's Sean Baker, I believe. That's his name.
Yeah, Dr. Baker's full of shit.
Dr. Baker, he literally called out a scientist. He called out a scientist for simply disagreeing with him that you should eat all meat, and that he said something outrageous, like fruit is bad, like something crazy like that. He does it all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's saying outrageous things. He's saying either you're carnivore or you're bad. Just like the vegans are saying, if you eat meat, you're fundamentally not only immoral, but inferior. And that's more broadly the case on the left when it comes to things. But with the diet thing, both sides really do it. You know, look at the other one as, well, your diet is inferior. It's not just not right. It's not just wrong. It's completely wrong. And it's actually sick. And it actually is making you sick, and it's deadly. So that's crazy to see.
And it's horrendously state subsidized.
Exactly. One is very largely
like horrendously state subsidized.
Yeah.
And not saying that vegetables aren't subsidized too, but it's on like a whole different level.
But the interesting is, I think I forget who exactly where I read this, but like the federal government put out like nutrition guidelines, and literally they said Lucky Charms cereal.
Oh, let's pull that up. Now that you bring it up, let's
pull that up. That's the problem.
Jordan Peterson did a video like last week. Jordan Peterson did a video about the guidelines and how everyone's fat because of them. But the problem is 99% of people don't go on those guidelines. And you know, most people are just eating whatever the fuck they want, and that never really ends well. Standard American diet, you know, or not even standard. It's a variation of this. It's just, they say it's a balanced diet, but it's never balanced. You know, like you never. It's you know, it's the diet most obese people are on. You know, most people that have heart disease.
Well, it's a high carbohydrate diet. You know, extremely high. Like one of the craziest things about that old pyramid is that bread was like one of the things at the top, but not just any bread, specifically wheat bread.
Yeah, that was Jordan Peterson's argument.
Yeah,
but it doesn't really. No one followed those guidelines. If they did, we wouldn't have, you know, the problems we have today. But the whole thing with like people see a lot of results from going keto and carnivore. Because they're going away from the standard American unlimited whatever they want diet, and so there's a lot of misdiagnosis going on. But what you're saying earlier with the politics, it's like it's somewhat political. Most vegans I know are actually hardcore truthers and aren't liberal at all.
But I do know a couple libertarians that are vegan, but I don't know
libertarians. And actually, I really don't care what, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but it's mostly what YouTubers these people are listening to. Most of the carnivore and keto stuff are strictly Joe Rogan, you know, like listeners. that are really pushing this stuff. Baker was on Rogan, all those dudes were on Rogan. That's how they got big. That's how
I like Joe Rogan for what
got big
during the scam, the whole thing that was going on during the last few
gatekeepers.
Like asking, like, wait, this thing that's good, the WHO says is good, you're saying is bad. They're like, well, we didn't exactly say it was bad. He's like, I can afford this medicine. Why would you bring it up? And people were like, and that's kind of what got me.
You're talking about when he got COVID?
Yeah, well, specifically he was talking to Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and I was like, well...
Oh, that was a good debate. He smoked him.
Nobody ever calls the mainstream...
Yeah, Sanjay Gupta got destroyed.
Yeah, he got destroyed. And then he ran back and said that he killed Rogan. He went back to CNN or whatever he's on and was like, totally changed the story.
We good. I'm like,
that was hilarious. That was probably the best thing I've ever seen Rogan do. But these like gatekeeper types, they have to, make sure they say enough stuff to keep everyone on their side, while they're also misinforming those people at the same time. And I'm not just saying that about the carnivore diet or anything like that, but there's a lot of Rogan changes his opinion, whoever's on the show.
Frequently. And that's partly why I like him, because he does evolve.
I will say,
well, I wouldn't say it's evolution. I think it's just he's simply changing to fit whoever's on his show.
I don't think so. I will actually defend Rogan and say I think Rogan doesn't know about stuff, and why I like Rogan is he'll ask questions. So, what is it like to be an astronaut? Oh, we do. What is it like to be there? Oh, what is it? Because he doesn't know. You don't know everything about everything. So I have to ask me, what's it like to be a, marathon runner or someone who bikes a lot? And then you tell me like, I do this, and this. Oh, that's pretty cool. What's it like to, get, this condition or that condition, or have you ever run into anything like this? Or and that's why I like him, because it doesn't seem he tries to be an expert. He just asks, like Dr. Malone, so this is this and this is this, and then he just, in my opinion, takes the questions that are logical. So in this case, could this happen? The person I would say who kind of morphs into their guests is Tim Pool. Like when he has a liberal on, he seems to lean that way. When he has a Trump supporter on, and I'm not saying anything bad, I just don't know where he is, because it's kind of like,
well,
you watched the show when he had Alex Jones and Rogan and Luke Rudkowski on?
Yeah, that was cool. That was
a really good one. Yeah, and I really appreciate Luke. I worked with Luke for several years back in the day, and I really, awesome. I ran We Are Change with Luke for 4 years, I think.
Michael Heiss?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Michael Heiss is dope. So I really appreciated Luke correcting Joe Rogan on the definition of anarchy several times. That was very cool for him to do.
Yeah, he did do that in that episode, didn't he? Well, that's why Luke makes the TIMCAST show so much better. And the reason why is because obviously Tim and Luke agree on a lot. But fundamentally, what Tim has done and what he continues to do, although I would say it's lessening at this point, he goes, off and talks about how bad liberals are and how liberals are liars, they're dishonest, they're duplicitous, and that they're corrupt. And then he talks about Trump and he says, well, he's the best president in the last 40 years. He justifies every single thing about Trump with the really two things fundamentally. He's like, the best numbers of our lives. Jim Cramer said that in 2019. But
he's the funniest, maybe.
He's not. It's like he can't wrap his head around 2020 and 2021 and the amount of $9 trillion in 1 year. He printed more than Obama and Bush combined. His foreign policy was definitely extravagant. Yes, it wasn't as extravagant as Obama, Bush, and Clinton, but still, that doesn't mean that it's good. That just means there's a low standard in government. He still drone striked innocent people, right? He ramped up the drone strikes, which is saying a lot, because if you know anything about Obama, Obama bragged about blowing up people. He was known to use drone strikes massively, and Trump ramped them even up more after taking office. And what a lot of conservatives do, and people like Tim, who I'm not saying he's bad, but what they do is they say, well, he had no new wars. Well, because he had no new wars, that means he's a, let's just say, anti-imperialist, anti-interventionist president. And yes, he did try and pull troops back. He did all those things, but he also armed the Saudis. He gave millions of dollars to the Saudis, billions of dollars of equipment that they used fundamentally to kill and deprive the Yemenis people of life, liberty, and pretty much everything, their entire lives, destroyed their infrastructure with the weapons the United States gave them, and caused what the UN called the largest humanitarian crisis in the world.
Well, Obama started it. I'll even say
Obama. He did, but Trump continued it, though.
Yeah,
that's all I'm trying to say. But
Trump made it worse.
Don't you guys agree that Tim Pool and a lot of conservatives do this type of thing where it's like they keep trying to justify Trump's actions as though because he's better than Obama, that makes him good or we should vote for him? It's like, no, that doesn't mean we should vote for him.
Once you're mainstream like that, you can't. That was the problem. Okay, so I stopped working with Luke because he started reading the news and he started going in that direction of wanting to talk about the news all day and talk about mainstream stuff. And I was like, bro, like, I know this is bullshit. Like, I know this is bullshit. Like, why are you reporting on this stuff as if it's like legit? And he basically told me, he's like, that's where the audience is. And I was like, well,
I think Luke's being honest. Like, when I go to, because I'm signed up to Luke Uncensored, and he really does tell you what he thinks. I feel like there's a lot of people who want to tiptoe the main line and be like, well, this is okay. I kind of agree here. I kind of always want to play like safe.
No, Luke has an opinion. That's for sure.
Luke definitely has. Here's what I'd say. Luke has an opinion. Josh Sergensen of World Alternative Media, if you know him, has an opinion.
I know Josh.
Dan Dix has an opinion. And Ben Swan's good for like if you're running around like, oh, I have 50 things to do today. Give me a real quick story. Ben Swan's good, but Ben Swan's not good for long form.
Ben's elementary, like he's like, I give that to my new friends that are getting into libertarianism and
just
stuff like that.
Once Ben Swan, it's like, no, I don't. I have 10. Like if you're on an elevator, I'm like, Ben Swan, go. But I honestly think Luke, Josh, and Dan Dix are probably the best in news that I've found.
The thing is, okay, this is something that I think needs to be talked about more often, and this sort of goes into what I was saying. And conservatives and even libertarian-leaning types, sort of tending towards Trump, and defending things they normally wouldn't defend, and say a socialist or a communist, but because maybe that thing is bad, but it's not on the scale of horrific. Atrocities that maybe it was compared to Obama or compared to Bush, it wasn't even close to that. So it's not a fair standard. But what also conservatives try and do, and libertarian people, I'm not gonna say all libertarian people, but quite a bit of people in the Libertarian Party, they automatically come from not just news, but let's say that we were talking about dieting, news, philosophy, let's say, geopolitical strategies, socioeconomic theory. They come from a perspective of anti-establishment. So just like the mainstream media starts with establishment and then is going to be quick to defend anything that is part of the mainstream, the alternative media is doing the same thing, where they're more likely, and they tend to defend their own and defend anti-establishment people, even if they've shown evidence of being a little corrupt or being paid for, or not being consistent on every single topic. And people do obviously assume then that there's a monetary involvement, like with Andrew Tate. I see a lot of conservatives defending Andrew Tate. He really shouldn't be defended. All you need to say about Andrew Tate is, of course, he's not Hitler. Of course, he's not a Stalin, but he has displayed in multiple times, talked about some of the stuff he's done, right? And there's multiple witnesses.
And he's a psyop on top of it. So it's like they wouldn't report on him if they didn't want him to be his divisive self.
Interesting.
And then conservatives.
I'm like, they're helping you at the top.
Yes.
Yeah. No, if you're reported on. But going back to Tim Pool, if once you become mainstream, you have to so I left Luke because he was going to where the crowd was, and that's where Tim was. And once you're there, you can't say anything different than the mainstream, or else you start losing customers. So the second I've worked for a lot of these dudes, I've worked with a lot of these dudes. The second they start taking money, the whole message is out the window, and they're starting to pander to these people that are paying to them. And that's like, that's basically what Tim Pool Tim Pool, like even
So
the
Luke,
Kanye,
you're saying
the
Luke was
Kanye
paid
thing
off?
was a perfect example.
Luke was paid off.
I have a lot of stories about
Just be
Luke.
honest.
I have a lot of stories about Luke.
Do you think
But
do you think he's
Luke.
following the money and he's paid off to talk? Like,
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Okay, but here's my question.
Look, I mean, listen. Look at how how did we all find Luke? His street videos where he was, sticking a camera in, one of the Baron Rothschild's face. All these guys. That's what we liked Luke for. And then now look what he's doing. Why would he turn from the libertarian, one of the top 5 truther libertarian guys, to one of the top 5 mainstream guys? That's not. I don't see him being consistent with his original message all the way through, because I don't think Tim allows him to do that kind of commentary, nor do I think he even does that commentary anymore, because he is pandering to the mainstream. Those two are mainstream now. They don't like saying it, but they're completely controlled by fitting this character. Like, I just debated this kid named Carnivore Camaraderie, and he can't change his position or he'll lose his channel. So he's not, he says he's scientific, and I'm like, bro, you're not. You're always going to find information to fit your agenda because you are Carnivore Camaraderie.
They're always stuff. But okay, not to defend necessarily Luke, but I'm a hardcore anarchist.
That's why that was my problem with Luke. I'm I'm an anarchy guy, and he was going to the mainstream, and I was all right, well, I don't
well, this country, the Constitution did this. I'm fine, but this happened, this might not work. I'm okay, but I'm still willing to try it. But to be fair, in the alternative, at least we can have robust debate. I had huge debate, very long, and it's not apparently clear to me, but people want to have a discussion. I had a huge debate, and a really cool guy. But me and Jeremy, if you know Jeremy from Agorist Nexus, I said Somalia was anarchy because there's no central government, but there were warlords who do things like predation. And I said, look, since there's no central government and there's no monopoly on force, it's anarchy. Some people would argue no. They're different warlords, and since they're still doing stuff that's state-like, kind of like a mugger, well, that's not an anarchy. Has to be that there is nobody, no authority figure that can engage in predation. So, we have debates and we try and hash things out and figure things out. So that I'm okay with. To be fair, I don't know Luke. I'd like to meet Luke. To be fair, I'd like to sit down and talk with Luke at some point. Unless you really think that's a bad idea.
I would like to talk to him as well. Here's one thing I will say to sort of defend Luke, at least a bit. And obviously, like you said, you worked with him directly.
I'm not attacking him. I'm still cool with Luke. I appreciate Luke, but we had our differences, and that's it.
I was talking to Josh about that, and Josh said something similar. But I don't
there are some guys I worked with that I'm fuck those guys, don't ever talk to them again, but he's not necessarily one of them. But I do think he does a lot of, I think a lot he's become more.
He has a t-shirt.
Well, I would agree with you. He has become more mainstream. I would absolutely agree with that statement, and that's just factual. That's not some opinion. Yes, he's definitely became more mainstream, and I think it's quite obvious and clear to anyone who knows Luke, and you guys know Luke more than I know Luke, because I have not followed him for that long, about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. So I haven't followed him his whole career. But just in the time that I first saw his videos 2 years ago, like you mentioned, the on the street clips with Kissinger and the Rockefellers and whatnot, he has definitely conceded some of his viewpoints for the purpose of the podcast, to keep it not full anarchist. He obviously holds back on certain views. He almost never, I've never heard him actually call himself an anarchist, but it's just something you all know about him on the show. He's an anarchist, but he doesn't say, oh, I'm an anarchist. And you can tell he's holding back essentially. And he's conceding some views to keep the show more modern. And whether Tim Pool's, you know, sort of ordering that, or whether that's just, you know, assumed, I'm not quite sure.
That's why I appreciate what he did with Joe, because he didn't make a big deal about it. He was like, Joe, actually, anarchy is like people growing vegetables, and you know, like he was.
He did that with Milo too. Like he's consistent. That's why I liked him, because one girl's like, "Oh, Trump, he did such a good." He's like, "No, he did this, and Luke was the only one who's like, "No, that he." So he has some pushback. I guess since you met Luke, you met Dan Dix, and I think Dan Dix and Josh are doing excellent.
Dan's a funny dude.
Yeah, and Dan to me is completely legit, like journalist, just doing good job. So is Josh, so is Luke.
But going back to what you were saying earlier about what anarchy looks like, if you guys want to talk about this stuff, and it's funny that you mentioned Mises earlier. Have you ever listened to the Mises lecture? It's a Robert Murphy lecture called Chaos Theory.
Yes.
Okay, so if you know chaos theory, then you can debate people on anarchist societies. Then, like, we probably have a lot of the same.
I've listened to Robert Murphy, but he's not my top guy. I actually use another guy to debate stuff.
I've gone so far with chaos theory, like, and then now.
So when you're saying chaos theory, are you talking about the physical theory or something different? What do you mean?
It's the name of a lecture that's on the Mises website, you know, and it's Bob Murphy. It's just what he called the lecture, and it's
gotcha. Okay,
it's basically what an anarchist society would look like, and it's in my opinion one of the most important pieces of literature that we have. Basically explaining how it would work and answering all the questions of the naysayers. I have it on my YouTube. I'll put the link. I'll send you the link so you can include it. But it's I'm trying to redo the lecture, like with like my idea, with my commentary on it. But it's 4 hours long, so it's like it's taking me like it's really long. But honestly, even if you listen to just the first hour, you're like really you're on a whole different level than everyone else, because 9 out of 10 people think anarchy looks like the Wild West, and that's not what it's going to look like. No, there wasn't one to begin with, but it's not going to go back to something that looks like, you know, spaghetti westerns that Hollywood put out, because all these cities that we have are just going to free market up, and you're going to have to, you know, if you want to live in San Francisco, you go knock on the door, they say, hey, you're going to have to buy this insurance that says that you're not going to kill anyone. You know, they're going to give you the list of stuff. You're going to sign it. You're going to pay $2 a month for insurance. And if you ever kill somebody, they already, you know, it's like there's basically insurance basis communities would pop up in all different flavors.
To be fair, I'm an ANCAP myself. I don't really agree with that part of what he does. I would do it a different way. I'm coming from a different economist who would he's still an anarchist, but I probably see different ways to prevent. I think there's actually easier ways to prevent it rather than just insurance.
So every city would be a different flavor. You'd have San Francisco being the same cool, like liberal place that it is, and you'd have all these different cities that are already pretty segregated. You know, you just have them the free market, you know, showing up with solutions to, you know, the bad actors you were talking about earlier, you know, and basically, like, if you don't meet the requirements to live in the city, like if you kill someone in one city and try and get into another city, they're going to say your insurance isn't good here, and you have to go live out kind of in the Badlands, you know. It kind of sucks, you know. So it like gives you incentive to be a good human, on top of just, instead of just like, oh, the cops are going to get me if I do this, or, you know, like there's a lot more incentive to be proper in these places, because you don't want to get thrown out of them. And, you know, and instead of having the whole country under government rule and it's their way or the highway, you have many different cities with different flavors of government, and you can pick which one you want to go to based on what you see. You know, you'd have like super liberal cities, and you'd have super anarchist cities, and you'd have cities that look just like now, that are set up just like now. But you'd have the choice. You'd be able to opt in or opt out. That's what makes it better.
So you enforce,
now you don't have, you have no choice.
Here's how I have a preventative measure I don't necessarily disagree with Robert Murphy's insurance. I would just do it in a different way because I have an example of existing stuff that I've seen work. While it's primitive, I've seen it work. So some of the insurance stuff I like, but insurance is
check it out. Insurance, though, he was saying insurance for lack of a better idea. Now we have the blockchain, bro.
We got the blockchain, but I keep it more simple. I keep it more simple than that. What prevents violence and stuff to me really is two things. Yes, we can talk about the NAP and the gold role, but you want if it becomes too costly to be violent, you won't be violent. The whole notion that I'm going to be like, oh, okay, well, behave properly works for some people, won't. So, I think customary law is the best way to mitigate that. And there's different ways that they've done that throughout history, like how you prevent conflict, more customary law. But you can layer it too. You can have insurance and customary law, but I think customary law being the primary thing.
Yeah, I'm of the idea that bad actors are actually really few and far between. Like when you have government, you have the government employing tens of thousands of police that are going out and acting bad. So guaranteed bad actors with bad actors.
But here's a question.
Yeah,
we always thought this. There are just some evil people who go out and just kill a kitten. Granted, and that's not going to change whatever society. Anarcho-capitalist, which to be fair now, because of one guest Daniel brought on, I've been talking to syndicalists, primitivists. I've been talking to the whole spectrum, not just saying like, oh, I'm an ANCAP and everything's good. So, but my thing would be, one second. But here's what I would say. On top of everything. I don't think there's so many bad people as much anymore. I really looked at kind of what people do, and it really comes down to they have an incentive based on a particular belief, a structure, wherever it come from. And really, like, why'd you come on this podcast? Because you're like, oh, this might be a good discussion, might be good use of my time. I can talk about it, or I can engage in a discussion of whatever that is. So really what I'm finding is beyond there is comic book evil. I'm not going to say there's not evil, but clearly is. But really when it comes down to it, and I looked at this, it's based on incentives. If you change incentive structures, all of a sudden you change the whole spectrum of behavior. That's what I've seen. Does that make sense? Not to say like that there wouldn't be bad actors regardless, but if you change... Let me just get, like Michael Mallett said, if you don't have a monopoly on force, Hillary Clinton could still be evil, but maybe she's just an evil manager of, like, oh, the manager of Macy's is yelling at me and threatening to fire me, and she's fired, all of her friends. But,
do you guys, are you guys familiar with the dark triad traits?
Yeah,
they're a set of psychological personality traits: Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism. And these traits, essentially psychologically, from a diagnostic point of view, show you who in society is not only psychopathic, sociopathic, but who is evil. Right? These people who have these three traits. These are the Hitlers. These are the worst of the worst. Not just someone who, right? There's plenty of people who, let's say someone had sex with someone's wife. That person might kill them. That's not an evil person necessarily. But we're talking about people whose personality revolve around deceit, deception, and dishonesty, and typically are extremely narcissistic, right? And you usually get people that are 1 out of the 3, maybe 2 out of the 3. But roughly 3 to 4% of the population in any given society is there. For each population, 3 to 4% are psychopaths, right? And that number sometimes tips upwards of 6%, and typically when it does, it then goes back to 2%, and it's a sort of swaying.
Are those natural psychopaths, or are they a product of their environment?
Well, both. So it's complicated because people do have there is a genetic predisposition. There are there's not a gene for being homophobic, but there's a gene that makes you more likely to have a feminine personality, which then could make you more likely to be not only homophobic but also be a drug addict. So there's tons of genes that can predispose you, say, to negative emotion, right? But that doesn't mean necessarily that a person can't be predisposed to have negative emotion and not be a psychopath. That's perfectly sane and that's perfectly rational. But there's a bit of a connection genetically with certain people. But a lot of it is environmental, and a lot of it is from trauma-based memories and extreme trauma, which then leads to something we call a disorder in psychology now, right? And there's, God knows, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of psychological disorders. But one thing that's interesting about the people with these dark triad traits is they tend to aim for positions that they have immense power and can manipulate people. This is why a lot more out of the population, your average politician is going to be more psychopathic, simply because of the profession and what the profession revolves around, right? Politicians,
narcissistic motivation to get that position of power. I don't want to control that many people. Only a psycho would want that.
And most people don't.
Yeah.
Most people don't.
No. Yeah.
Because there's so much power with it. And those people who are psychopathic want power. And since nobody else, including yourself, wants the power to control people because no one trusts themselves enough not to be the tyrant, therefore the tyrants take control of the political system. And this happens in every country, everywhere. And then hopefully, if I don't know if you guys read Michael Malice's new book, The White Pill, but I read it and it's extremely good. I recommend everyone get that book. It's out now. But sometimes you get these tyrants, you get these totalitarian states and these dictators, and then there's some hero that might not be a good guy, but might be willing to sacrifice for the greater good and is not evil, is not a Stalin or not a Hitler, and you get these people who are willing to negotiate and make peace, right? And hopefully that's what you get. But so often does it seem we get a president or any sort of politician to fall under these dark triad traits.
Yeah, I think the second they have power, they become corrupt. So even when you have, this guy who's great, the second he shows up. But two things I wanted to point out.
Yeah.
So, government, like what you were saying earlier, what you're just saying, government creates a desperate environment, which creates crime, desperate people who turn to crime. So sans that government, like what we were talking about earlier about, the lack of police or some sort of dealing with bad. In my Jeff flavored community in anarchy land, the lack of police would cause the men in the community to deal with any bad actors as they see fit. And when you leave it to a community,
because they would be incentivized because they don't have to worry about the state punishing them for committing crimes, moral crimes of saving and protecting the community. But because in so many states, the gun laws and the regulations are so strong, people are not incentivized to step up and do the ethical thing.
Yeah. We've been trained to call the cops instead of step up as men and deal with it. And you won't get, a lot of people, that would just be mob rule. People would be getting beheaded all the time. And when it's a community, the community gets together and the community will judge whether or not this person should be killed for what they did, or if it's one of the family member, if it's a member of the family in the community is going to understand more what's going on and help to create like a positive, outcome instead of, us taking someone to court where we get victimized. We take the guy who victimized us to court. They get thrown in jail, thus victimizing us again by us having to pay taxes to house that person. Like that doesn't work, that's not sustainable. And in these communities, the free market communities, like there will be far better ways of dealing with bad actors, or in these communities that are more community based, not like these large super cities we have, which you get into all kinds of problems. Once you start moving into the cities, the community will just deal with these bad actors. Okay, someone's crazy. All right, let's talk to him. Let's take him into therapy, instead of throw him in jail. And you actually stop a lot of these problems, these escalations in crimes, and so crime goes down because people are, mental health issues are getting more paid attention to, which is the opposite of what happens in a city. People just scoff at everyone running around who's crazy, and people live under bridges and shit and just isolate. So, yeah, clearly they aren't doing the right thing now.
No, but one thing I want to mention with all of this is, yes, mega cities would be an issue, but that could still be solved. I think the biggest thing I've seen as a counter to government is a reputation. And then when you couple that with signaling, that works, but mostly customary law, things like common law, Brehon law, Sharia law, because there's a standard basis that most people in the community are going to agree on, even if they're not homogenous, that, hey, this is how we're going to conduct our daily lives, and this is what we're going to follow. And that's even stronger than the Constitution to me, because there's a lot of incentive to follow those, because that is the law that a lot of people are basing not only what they do every day, but right and wrong action. And they're saying, oh, okay, well, I'm going to base it off these social norms. I'm going to base it off this, type of code or law that I have. And private organizations have that too. The issue with police is, and Robert Murphy says this, the reason police either overreact or underreact or don't do their job or mess up is not a consequence of having law enforcement or having security. It's a consequence of having one group that has a monopoly on law enforcement. So and we can see that. Are you familiar with threat management, Del Brown? I'm guessing you are, because you're in these circles. No incident, hasn't lost one person in Detroit out of all places. I would think probably a couple people got gunned down. Hasn't lost one person. I don't think threat management's perfect, but I do think it's a pretty good
better than what we got. Yeah,
a pretty good model to base what we would call policing, because Dale explains he changes the incentives. Police come after there's an issue. You call the police after you've been robbed, after something. He says we focus on prevention. How can we prevent this? So they have cameras, they address people, and it's a whole different mindset.
Even in our logbooks, it says before you go to court, talk to your brother. Talk to them first. One more time. You're supposed to work things out before you go straight to court, but that whole step, gets skipped these days because it's used as a tool, basically, again to get back at someone these days. It's weird.
And what Dale Brown said in the interview is he wants people who are actual people, like a bartender or something. Like, you think, oh, why would a bartender be a good cop? Because they're sitting there listening to people's issues so they can empathize with people. If you don't care about people and you're hiring cops that don't care about people, just give me a paycheck. Which
they should all be psychologists.
There's a lot of cop jokes that I've shared around. I get it. With recent events, I'm not going to go into that one, but because that has been plaguing my social media timeline.
Dude, every post is a picture of this officer.
It's like the worst one I've ever seen.
With 5 guys, and I see it. I'm like, dude, this girl just became famous overnight. She became viral, and I was gonna say,
not that funny.
Yeah, she looks like a mouse. Yeah, she sort of looks like, I've seen her compared to Caroline Ellison. Yeah, they're weird. Yeah, they're druggies and they're very grimy people or slimy people. But I don't really care. I don't know why it's going viral, honestly. You know how many cops are probably doing the same exact thing right now? You know how many people in different professions are cheating on their spouse, man or woman? I'm not just saying one or the other. It's happening all the time. And I guess because I think it has to do with what she looks like, because she kind of looks a little peculiar. Like, you'll see her and you're like, yeah, she's probably not loyal.
And then the video came out of her riding a mechanical bull.
Yeah, and the guy took her back even after she went viral, even after the internet knew about how many people she had sex with, and she had sex with people on the job, literally on the clock as a cop, on duty. And he was like, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm like, I don't know about that, dude.
People date porn stars.
Yeah, that is true. Well, I think that's a bit different, though. Don't you think that's a bit different than... If you know your wife is going to do something,
unless he's into it, he might be into that. A lot of dudes are weird these days, man.
That's in her past. If a girl's like, hey,
that's true.
I have some mileage, but I'm done getting it. But you're the only one who can drive. Okay. But if she's like, I'm going to go to other car dealers to get extra money. No, So that there's a fundamental difference there. But anyway, not to get on that because that's literally everybody's timeline, and I contributed to that, so it's my fault too. But threat management shows to me that a free market solution be effective. I don't see security guards in malls beating the crap out of people. And if you really read the Second Amendment, you can get conservatives mad at the Second Amendment because it says a well-regulated militia. And I'm like, well, if it says a well-regulated militia is critical to defense, I think you can argue, even from a constitutionalist perspective, not ANCAP, constitutionalist perspective, that local law enforcement and the military are unconstitutional. And it has to be you and your boys who are down to boot, as I call it, or what the founding fathers would call Minutemen. Hey, get your AR-15. There's something going down. That's, to me, I think, what they envisioned. Like me, you, Danny, like, oh, okay, there's an invasion. Get together and organize, as opposed to the government saying, well, we're going to tell you who the enemy is because we want to acquire resources or this or protect the dollar, which is still going to go down. Or protect some globalist institution or protect some random ideal that somebody had. That's my interpretation. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm not a constitutionalist, but that's how I see it.
I think if we give the actual free market a chance, like all the ideas, we've been speculating for years of what the future may hold if there is no government in the future. It's like anything we come up with, once the free market's actually around, there's going to be such better solutions like that come up, like we
Bitcoin.
could, like, I don't know what the free market's going to bring, but I could speculate that blockchain will have some probably to do with it, and how you can adjudicate things without decentralized adjudication without humans involved, where everything's just very cut and dry.
You can still have humans involved. Like even a smart contract needs humans to program.
Oh yeah, well, for sure.
I don't ever see something ever being completely. I don't want it to be independent of humans. And I'll even say this: the nice thing about a free market thing is people who are not pro free market, you can start to even collaborate with them and work with them, which some people are opposed to. I'm not.
Yeah. Well, in my model, they have a home. Those people have the whole. It's pretty fun.
Honestly, trying the hardest thing actually to do. I think the biggest challenge is not actually because governments are toppling themselves. They're doing a good job of that. Nobody likes Klaus Schwab, and everybody agrees with me. The hardest thing I have to do, the biggest challenge, and because people ask me why all the time are you doing it. I said, look, I'm going to pop in this anarcho-syndicalist chat and talk to them. They're like, why don't you just talk to conservatives? Because conservatives still want a small amount of the state. These people don't. They call me a neo-feudalist. The people on the ANCAP side are like, why would you read Bakunin? Well, because there's more.
He had the best critique of Marx. And not only did he have the best critique of Marx, he had the best critique of Marx in his time. Not only that, he predicted what would happen when Marx implemented his socioeconomic theory. He said that it would start in bloody revolution and it would end in mass genocide. And he said the Soviet Union was going to do exactly what the Soviet Union did. And the famous Bakunin quote, if you beat a man with the stick and then you beat him with the people's stick, it's not that much of a difference. It doesn't make that much of a difference. So he saw the flaws in Marx's theory before it was even implemented on a mass scale. And I must say at that time, there wasn't a lot of Bakunins on the leftist side. Most people fell in lockstep with Marx and Engels. And for him to be a sort of dissident of that school of thought at that time, it was just, I give that guy a lot of credit. I think even though he's on the left, we all agree he's leftist anarchist. He made really good critiques at a time where it wasn't particularly beneficial to make those critiques. So credit to him.
Yeah, a ton of credit, because you can say Solzhenitsyn did a great job with the Gulag Archipelago. Great stuff.
He did.
But one thing I'll say about Solzhenitsyn, he did it after. It's easy to look and say, well, that was a bad experience. Yeah. I can
sort
tell
of
you
during and after. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
He didn't predict it. It was already the
current with the current thing that's happening now that involves some stuff. When I said in 2020, I don't know about this, I think you should hold off. People like, no, full speed ahead. It's easy to say now, hey, it was a bad, looking at hindsight's 2020. It's easy to say, especially with what Solzhenitsyn went through, which was hell, that it was a bad idea. But the reason I give Bakunin even more credit is because he's like, look, this is going to end badly. Don't do this. People are like, let's try it anyway. I'm like, oh, this is a bad idea. So that's why I said to some people, like, look, okay, I get it. Rothbard is the main thing for me and other economists, and Robert Murphy. But I still think, to be fair, even though I don't agree with them on everything, even though they have crazy takes, I think mutualists, agorists, the agorists may be yelling at me because I want to vote and do like politics things in the Mises Caucus, whatever. I'm still doing it. Like I still like Larkin Rose. I still like my boy Justin and all that. It's just the fact that
So this is the quote exactly. I just want to get this quote. When the people are being beaten with the stick, they are not much happier if it is called the people's stick. That's the quote. It's pretty much what I said. But that's the exact quote.
100%. So I had John Zerzan on, which I'll definitely get him back. He's an anarcho-primitivist. I've talked to mutualists. I'm trying to get them on. I've talked to anarcho-communists and syndicalists. I'm like, what do you guys believe? Look, at least we all believe in the same basis of anarchy. And they say, fine, we don't like capitalism. But I made the argument to them, look, and I made the same argument to ANCAPs. Look, let's say you get the ideal situation. You defeat the BRICS world order. You defeat the Western world order. You get rid of people like Klaus Schwab and the globalists and the nationalists. Okay, society's decentralized. Capitalism is the best system. Not everybody wants to live under capitalism. We believe in the NAP. How do you deal with those people who do have a fundamentally different belief who aren't just normies? And I think that's something worth examining. Sorry that was a long route, but that's what I've been looking into. So a little bit different from everybody else, where some people just want to stay in their lane. I want to stay in the anarchist lane and just say, like, how can these different groups, even if they don't each other, work together? Sorry, I'll shut up.
I don't think that there's gonna once these ideas take hold, I don't think there's gonna be like anti-free market people when they're seeing the benefits of the free market on the other side of their fence.
I would disagree with that. I would disagree with that.
You think they'd rather have a centralized government running everything into the ground when the free market's doing great next door?
In the Soviet Union,
kind of.
There's so many examples, particularly with the Soviet Union, but within the Soviet Union, there were people who took part in the lie. They were born into the lie. They were born into the October Revolution, and that was their entire life. Gulags, mass starvation, deprivation, and they still lied, and they still knew they were lying, and they weren't telling the truth. But they did not know or weren't able to conceptualize the full truth outside of the Soviet Union because of how tight locked their propaganda was. But the people who were born before the revolution, right? People like even Lenin, right, had confessed in private to ladies, someone named Emma Goldman, right, and confessed to her that he didn't actually believe some of the ideas. But anyways, the people who were before in the revolution had this, they saw America, they saw other countries outside of Russia, they saw what Russia was even before the Soviet Union, which was far better. It was far less totalitarian. They didn't have executions for over 50 years under, Elizabeth what was her name? I think Elizabeth the Great, I think that was her name. Under her, she didn't have a single execution her entire, time in office. So you get to the Soviet Union, and these people are looking around, and they're like, "This is all a lie." Yeah. And even though they knew it was a lie, they had fully unconsciously believed the propaganda of the communist doctrines, and knew that there was something outside of this world, outside of the Soviet Union world, outside of communism that worked, and it worked better. Yet they were, willing and able to voluntarily take part in the lie, knowing that it would kill millions upon millions of people. The same thing with the trying to think, the interrogators, right? The interrogators of people who would interrogate people in gulags, right? These people knew what they were doing. They were beating people to death. They were starving people to death. They would throw people in cells and fill the cell with cold, icy water and torture them. And then they would laugh about it after they did it. And they would go from East Germany to West Germany to the States and back. So they traveled around. So they saw how the United States was. And they still weren't even willing to, untighten the communist doctrines. It took time. It did happen eventually. Of course, it happened in the 70s and 80s. We get Gorbachev, who's like, no, I'm not going to use lethal force. I don't care if they take the wall. We're not going to shoot the people, because there was many people in his corner telling him to shoot people and bring out the tanks during the fall of the Berlin Wall. And he didn't do it, and he refused to do it. Another perfect example is when Reagan was shown the nuclear protocol and they told Reagan to push it. He refused to push the button, and he didn't know this at the time, but Gorbachev also refused to push the button and said, if we die, we die. So there was a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not saying that there's not, but many people, even though they have a witness, they have evidence, empirical evidence of a better reality, that does not mean that they're going to be willing to break from their ideology and belief system to propagate that reality into the world and to try and change. People will dig their heels in their belief systems until they're underneath the sand, completely surrounded in sand. And they'll do it. And it takes a lot. Even the people who are witnessing, millions of Ukrainians being starved in Russia, even though they knew they only had one grain or one cow, they refused to say no to Stalin, partly because of fear and intimidation. But many of them believed in the communist doctrine and thought this was necessary to propagate the communist, proletariat dictatorship, and this was for the better. And at the end of this, after killing these Ukrainians, it would be better for the party. It would be better for society. And of course, that wasn't true. And of course, they convinced themselves of that. I'm not saying there wasn't any self-deception in there, but I'm telling you, people will dig their heels in the sand, even when you're looking around you and there's so much evidence to disprove what you're doing.
That makes sense. I'm kind of knowing history is written by the victors. I'm very skeptical of the stories that are told around political things. And so in my heart, I don't feel, that there would be many people in the United States, maybe in the Soviet Union and Russia. While they are similar, and that does have a lot of valid points, I think we're definitely living in a different place now. And I think that things are so bad now that if anything better came along, people would jump ship like crazy. And the people that don't are going to be in the very low percentile, and we would find some nice way of giving them some space for them to have, we don't have to, kill everyone we disagree with all the time, and it's only government that's doing those types of things, and if we get rid of government and we become ungovernable as an entire community, as a society, and figure out these ways to have firemen and
I think all that is sort of let's say the government falls or part of it collapses, which if you look at today's current government, United States federal government, they're pretty much on their way to collapsing. But let's just say they collapse. I don't think, this is me personally, and there's people who will argue against this, I don't think there's going to be fires in the street. I don't think it's going to be total and utter chaos. I think the same institutions that have worked before the federal government had any power above their only power was for taxes, and back in the day there wasn't even really any taxes, and the military and intercommerce trade. That was it. That was to facilitate trade between the states and the military. That was all the government built itself around. That was all it funded.
Why wouldn't you go back to work? Like, if the government falls, why wouldn't you go back to work the next day if your paycheck's going to be better?
Yes, exactly. I would argue that you would. I would argue that you would. And the basic institutions that we might find them contemptible, but I think they will survive, but not in the same manner, and they won't have the same power that's been given to them by the federal government. And I think a lot of these big tech companies will, I don't think they're going to go bankrupt necessarily. Some probably will.
No, there will be chaos.
Yes,
but
financial chaos,
not financial chaos and political chaos. But I'm kind of like, my dad is a hippie. I'm kind of a free love kind of guy. But like, I'm not a doomer that thinks that we're put on this planet negative to kill all the animals and all the people. Like, I think the greater good of like when people are like, oh, do you think, our government's, our military is going to come and take us and all this stuff? And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, our brothers and sisters? Yeah, sure. There are going to be some psychos that would fire on Americans, but the greater good of the people, in the military are going to stop that small percentile from doing that. And I mean, I like, it's just, I'm just not a doomer like that. A lot of people, no matter what, the people just be getting beheaded in the streets the day after government's gone, because all the laws aren't really laws anymore. And laws are the only things keeping us from killing each other, right? Like,
silly. That's the craziest thing I've heard. And I hate when people do that, because I'm like, if you really think about it, it's social norms that are governing behavior, not per se laws that Congress doesn't even read. I thought it was with even Matt Gaetz with the McCarthy thing is like, I want to see how our laws are made. I can tell you there's a 4,000-page document. No one can read it. People vote yes because leadership votes yes. And that's how they do. Yeah. And for me, I'm like, what Congress passes doesn't matter. The legislative branch is kind of useless to me. What I think it is what are the social norms that people are following? And they're going to continue to follow those irrespective of a system going up or down or not. Yeah, but I have friends who are like, oh my God, CBDC, oh my God, they're gonna take.
I know. Jeremy is quite the cynic, and he's such a cynic that sometimes it's quite hard to talk to him, because he doesn't believe in a good future.
Yeah, he's entitled to his opinion, but I'm like, dude, I don't see CBDC working. I do see problems in Ukraine, but I don't see it going to the level some people say it will. I don't see the World Health Organization winning out. I don't see that. If I really thought they were going to win out,
that's so nice to hear that, man. Like, everyone around me is a doomer, and like, I totally agree with all that shit. Like, huh?
Well,
is Luke a doomer?
I don't know. Luke's I
think he's.
I don't know if I ever met Luke. Really, you know what I'm saying? Like, I hung out with Luke plenty, but I don't know if I ever actually met Luke. And that's how you should kind of treat everyone, like, who knows?
Yeah.
But there are, like, you guys know Paul Enslaved?
I've heard of him. I'm not a big fan or anything.
Yeah, I'm on his panel just about every day, and it's like, guys come up and they're just like, I want to have kids, but I'd never have a kid in these scenarios and all this, and with all the stuff going on in the world. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, why are you here then? Like, geez, if it's that bad, like, I don't see it that way,
I don't know.
No, I agree. And to touch on a point that you guys are both saying, right? You guys would both consider yourself, I don't know, positivists or optimists, right? Yes, there's a lot of chaos going on. Yes, there's totalitarianism. And yes, there's current societies which pose an existential threat to, you could say, other industrialized, technologically advanced societies. But that doesn't mean that there's no hope. That you would agree with that statement, right?
I call myself an eternal optimist. You nailed it right on the head.
Nice.
Okay, and same thing with you, right, Kareem?
Yeah, I call myself an optimist. Now, I do consider myself like a realist in some sense, that if a doctor comes on and says, well, because of the results of this could be this, I'm not going to say like, oh, that'll never happen. I'm not going to be an optimist, in a ridiculous one. Oh, the dollar will be around for 200 more years. Like, because then sometimes people go too far. Like,
I agree.
Not Gordon. I can't.
Are you talking about optimism with government?
Yeah, I mean, optimism on certain things. Like, there's some people who
I just meant in life.
But yeah, in life overall, yes.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna win. I definitely think they're going down. I think they're biding time now and they're still playing games, but I definitely know we're going to win. I think there'll be a tough road ahead. There are some people who probably just think, no. I do think there'll be a tough road ahead. There'll be some rebuilding period. There'll definitely be some challenges, but I think it definitely can be done. And I'm more of an optimist than a lot of people. And then I tell people that, hey, Americans have high civic capital. What I mean by that, how do you know if a society has high civic capital? I'm told, like, if you're in Japan and you leave this on a train, somebody will return it to you. That's high civic capital, meaning they have a respect for property right norms. And most people in my area, now it depends on area to area in the United States, it does. But I don't see most of my neighbors just like, oh my God, okay, it's not, let's turn in the savages the minute something bad happens. I do see that happening. With the beer flu, there was some toilet paper battles. But I think the majority of people do have high civic capital and would help out their neighbor if stuff hits the fan. And I'm banking on that, saying, hey, look, I think we're going to get through it. I do think there's going to be problems with the energy grid. I do think there will be problems with the financial system. I do think prices are going to be very high. I do think there will be some issues internationally. Clearly, there are. I do think BRICS is going to try and do the same thing maybe NATO has done for a while now. But I ultimately think decentralized structures are going to collapse in on themselves. That's where I'm at. I like to also give a kind of a, level, an optimistic perspective, but a realistic perspective. Just like, everything will be fine. Nothing will ever change. No, it's not. There'll be some bad stuff that goes down.
It'll be a mess for a little bit, but they're all not life-ending issues. They're not big, huge problems.
Well, one of them is.
I mean, we did,
But
of course.
The rest
of
them, And the hard part with that one is you have one professional who's like, well, this many people did, and then will be this, and then I hear another expert, and I'm like, I really don't know what to believe. I will say though, on my Telegram group, I pop it open. It's like another 5 people every day, or 10 people that, not that I know, but like man. But yeah.
I found that most experts aren't experts.
Yeah, true. I mean, they're people giving their opinion. The people Like even in ANCAP circles, you say, how do we deal with this situation? Everybody's going to give their opinion on, I want to do private law. You could do this. You could do this. Arbitration. Or you could do, instead of, I wouldn't do arbitration, I would do this. Or I would, have someone duel it out. Or I would have someone just, pay restitution fees or no. So, people give different opinions. That's fine.
Yeah.
Opposed to like, hey,
so one of the craziest things about the last 100 years, and I would say even the last 50 or 60 years, is that for a long time, I mean, essentially from the end of World War II to around 1991, there was a cultural, an economic, and even an ideological battle between the West and the Soviet Union, right? It went on for a long time. And for people who are younger and, obviously don't remember anything about the Cold War, but the Cold War was a thing. And it genuinely scared the population. People genuinely feared nuclear war. There was multiple occasions where we came seriously close to at least a low-level nuclear war with the Soviet Union. Multiple times, from the Cuban Missile Crisis to in the 70s and later in the 60s with Khrushchev. There were some scary times there, and that pretty much took up the entirety of American geopolitics, right? That was all geopolitical strategy was how do we work with the Soviet Union? How do we move forward? How do we denuclearize? And obviously the policy changed from president to president. But in the 80s, right, when the wall fell, the Helmut Kohl stood and looked at the leader of Poland at the time and said, I don't think the leader of Poland looked to Helmut Kohl and said, I don't think this wall is going to be around much longer. And Helmut Kohl said, "You don't understand." Like he said, tapped them on the head and basically said, "There's no way the wall falls. Soviet Union has been here for decades. It's going to continue here. There's no way the Berlin falls." And then the next day, the wall fell, and he left and said he's in the wrong party. So no one thought the Berlin would fall. No one in East Germany and no one in West Germany. It was a few people who saw some of the policy making that was going on between Gorbachev, between President Ronald Reagan, and between Thatcher at that time. The people who were close to them saw that there was more communications than there had ever been since pre-Lenin days. And Gorbachev and Reagan and Thatcher all worked together to essentially put a 60, 70-year totalitarian country to end. They put it to end. And they did it in like 3 days. Like the Soviet Union broke apart, the wall fell, and the Soviet Union wasn't even a year before it was completely dissolved. The government had nowhere even close to the power that they did. There were no more gulags. The gulags were shut down. The wall was broken, and people could travel from Russia to Ukraine. And there was no more Soviet Union. There was no, communist directorship anymore. And that happened fairly quickly. And no one thought it was going to happen. And you have to ask yourself, and I'm quite the cynic sometimes too, because I see how bad things are. I see the black pill, I take the black pill, and I'm like, well, I mean, it's really hard to be optimistic when you're, first of all, working against people who have more power, more wealth, more resources than you. But when you have people that are on your team that act like idiots, like conservatives can't even get out of their own way to actually stop the totalitarian state and the sort of I don't even want to use the word communist. I would just say authoritarian movement in politics, because they're bought off by institutions. They're bought off by big pharma as well. They signed the same bills that put the Patriot Act in. It was the majority Republicans who passed the Patriot Act. It was majority Republicans who passed the reauthorization of the Patriot Act, except for a couple Republicans who decided not to go with it and a couple of Democrats, right? So it's hard to be optimistic in that sort of, I guess, framework. But considering if we look back at history, I mean, once again, no one thought the Soviet Union was going to collapse. So what's to say that, in 10 years, I mean, let's just give an example. In 10 years from now, it's very likely that China collapses. Okay, it's very likely that Russia collapses. And it's almost absolute. It's almost 100% that they're probably going to have a new leader in a decade, just because of Stalin's age and his health, right? That's just a high probability. Okay.
And they're all running fiat currencies that,
not to mention that they're destroying their economy.
Yeah.
So what does that do? I was going to cover the story today. China's GDP grew the slowest it had since the 70s. Right. Their population is now the lowest it has been since the 60s. And economists and many type of experts predict by 2044, I believe the year was, their population size will decrease to 700 or 800 million people from 1.2 billion. Okay, they have a dying society, and all they have is old people, and they have no one to build and innovate anymore because of, the one-child policy for 50 plus years.
It's trying to control the population.
And Russia has a similar problem where birth rates are down.
Exactly. They have a similar problem too. Yes, and Russia and China. Russia and China, real quick. Russia and China both look like they're probably going to be gone, and that leaves the United States to still have power, which gives me hope that the people who fearmonger about China coming in and Russia coming in, listen, I don't think they're going to even be a geopolitical threat in 10 years. That's my opinion. That's my analysis. I think the American society can change and it can get much better, and we don't have to worry about foreign enemies taking us over, because a lot of people use that.
We have to worry about ourselves, because we're all still fighting.
Exactly.
Even among anarchist groups, we're still fighting.
But I don't think those countries that are considered a threat now will be a threat in 10 years. And I think it's hard for people to wrap their mind around that, just like it was hard for Helmut Kohl to wrap his mind around the wall falling, right? It was hard for him to wrap around that because that was all he knew. All we know is China. All we know is the news pumping it up as the next superpower. But in reality, it will fall. It will definitely fall. And I think it will fall fairly quickly.
Yeah. And you have to also realize the news is paid by the military industrial complex and this complex and the other complex. So basically they're given a script, and Ivory Hecker even said it Tim Pool. Like, you're given a script, you have to follow the narrative. You cannot go off the script. You can't be like, well, by the way, these people aren't really a threat. Iran's not really a threat to anybody, you know. But, you know, if we don't, you know, go up against them, we'll look weak. I'm like, dude, honestly, for one, they're surrounded by our bases. Two, they don't care. Like, just leave the rest of the world alone. But they won't say that because they can't. Rupert Murdoch has them by a string. You get on here, you say that even people have compiled stuff where the best people say the exact same thing. Oh, it's a threat to our democracy. This is a threat to our democracy. This is a threat to our democracy.
And considering we're not a democracy, you have to seriously question what those people mean by that. We were never a democracy. And the more we move towards one, the more our founding fathers are shaking in their graves, in my opinion.
Exactly. Well, I'd say the Republic ended with Lincoln, but really when they're saying our democracy, it's a nice way of saying our hegemony. He's a threat to our hegemony. This is a threat to our establishment. We're all part of a club, and you ain't in it. And if you're outside of it, you're a threat to a power dynamic. So, because that's all we hear of anyone who's they're a threat to democracy. They're a threat to this. They're a threat to society. Oh my God, if this person, you know, get them. Like, just listen. If someone is seriously threatening what they're doing, they're going to make up stuff like that.
So I want to ask you, Jeffrey, where do you see, and again, obviously, don't try too hard on the question, but where do you see American society in the next, let's just say 10 years, because we use that time frame for China? Where do you see the economic situation going? Where do you see the geopolitical situation going, if there is one at all?
Man, I think crypto is definitely going to take over in some way. We'll probably be being forced to use some state coin like XRP or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying the dollar will sort of transfer into a sort of digital dollar?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it kind of already is, but yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know I think if the people in the U.S. Use decentralized cryptocurrencies and that actually picks up, I think that will be beneficial for those people. But it's kind of all up in the air because we don't really know what the government is going to do or how or if they're going to be able to regulate cryptocurrency. I'm a crypto guy, so it's kind of like, you know.
I don't think so. Go to any senator. I challenge. Go to any senator. Even
they don't know shit.
Who you think are technically savvy? Go to iPatch McCain. Well, maybe not iPatch McCain. I don't know. Go to any senator you think is kind of hip and ask them what a MetaMask wallet is and how to.
They don't know anything.
They don't know what DeFi is.
They are trying to put out that they don't know anything because they do, like the lady, the treasury lady, who's just like she has no idea. But it's like they put her up there and make her say the dumb shit. So we're thinking, oh, government doesn't give a shit about crypto when they probably do, you know. As far as I'm just like I'm kind of an eternal skeptic and contrarian about just about everything. So
well, okay, let me ask you this. They seized Ross Ulbricht's Silk Road. They were paying in crypto with that. Where did that go? The FBI is sitting on a ton at this point.
The fact that Ross
only got that because
he's a shame.
Yeah, the only way they got that crypto is because he left his wallet open on his computer. Yeah, a lot of people think that was like a seizure where they got his crypto somehow else. But what was the question about?
I would imagine
Silk Road. Oh, where to go? They auctioned it off, or that went into FTX as a CIA front. FTX.
Maybe they put some in FTX, but I'd wager there's some CIA or some FBI agent walking around saying, "Hey, man, check this out. Look at my hardware wallet."
I don't think they took all the money.
Not all of it, but they took some.
Yeah, he definitely had more than one wallet. I do think. Listen,
there was a big auction. I remember there was a huge auction where they were auctioning off his crypto, and it was his shitload of crypto.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is one of the most profitable industries is the pharmaceutical company, and that's essentially what this was. But you know, a legal version encompassing all types of drugs, not just pharmaceutical drugs. You know, psychedelics, all types of stuff. I mean, I gotta imagine that the guy probably had billions of dollars. He had probably
it was a shitload of crypto that they
can
auctioned.
you imagine? I mean, for years and years and years, this guy ran Silk Road and got all the crypto profits from millions of people buying stuff, drugs, and
he got
all
sloppy.
types of
That's
stuff.
why he got caught, is because he was so rich. Like there was so much money.
He couldn't keep his cover anymore.
Couldn't keep his shit anymore. Yeah, basically.
Exactly.
But the dude from who's the big investor who's always in every crypto video? Jeffrey.
You mean
there's
crypto?
There's a guy. One of the big institutional investors bought a lot or all of that crypto, several years back, maybe 5-6 years ago. But I think a lot of other crypto that was seized was put towards making and running FTX as a psyop.
You're not talking about Jeff Bezos,
to do this crash. No. I'm talking about. It's right on the top of my tongue. There's a big company that was the first big institution to start buying up crypto like crazy. And the dude who runs it is in like every video about crypto, is interviewed with every single crypto YouTuber, and he's boring. He's kind of boring. Like, what's that?
BitBoy Crypto?
No, he's a YouTuber. I'm talking about institutional investor.
Roger.
I'm trying to think. You said his name is Jeff.
Oh man, I cannot. I've done over 100 crypto videos, but I haven't done one in like since the market took a tank, and so my brain has just switched to different things.
Oh man,
I'll send you guys all the links once I get off here.
Actually, that'll work.
But there was a big auction. It was pretty known. It was probably in 2018. There was a big auction with all of the Silk Road stuff, but that might have just been a front too, like I don't buy anything really, like because there's just there's too much deception around to make sense of any of this stuff. But I mean, for all we know, Ross was a psyop the whole time. The whole Silk Road was a psyop, like just to get people buying crypto. Crypto might be deceptive for all. No, I mean, anything could be. Like I was at someone at like, the crypto stuff is dope, but Bitcoin's dope. But if it tanked tomorrow, if it completely just disappeared tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be like, okay, well, we invested a lot in something and lost a lot of trust in something that we really didn't know anything about.
Rug pulls happen. I don't think Bitcoin's going anywhere, to be honest.
No, I don't. I'm just giving an example of anything could be happened.
Anything could happen. I don't necessarily like the EMP argument. People are like, what if your internet goes out? I'm like, dude, it's on a hardware wallet.
You can trade crypto with smoke signals if you do it right.
I'm like, I don't know. What if Walmart doesn't take a bar of gold when you throw it at them? It's ridiculous questions, but
yeah.
No, and
guy as well. You can add more if you'd like.
Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy.
That's who I thought you were talking about.
Yeah.
But when you said Jeff, I was like, he's not talking about Saylor.
Michael Saylor. It was like a name that had something to do with my life, and it's Sailor because I used to be a sailor, so I thought it might have been my first name.
I consider him a crypto shill.
He
knows a lot.
He knows a lot, but he's really dull in interviews, and he's just like, he's a moon boy for sure. But he's got anyone with that much money can be a moon boy. They don't have to worry about.
Max Kaiser is more interesting to me.
He's really good. Max Kaiser is because he was one of the first people in that sphere that was really waking people up to crypto years ago, before it even had a dollar worth of value. And because he understood the tech behind it, but beside the tech, he understood after the economic crisis of 2008 and 2007 and the financial situation that there had to be an alternative that was not fiat. He understood that, and quite a few people did. And then, obviously they bought crypto really early. I've heard he has billions of dollars in crypto. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard multiple people tell me that
he has to.
tens of billions, not just one.
If I had held on to all the crypto I'd have $1 billion, and I'm not a guy with who's been super involved in it as much as he is. I mean, I have, but not as much as Max Kaiser.
Yeah.
Max,
if I would probably have $10 million, but nothing.
Yeah, no, I lost 17 Bitcoin trading in 2013.
Did you keep any? Did you keep any at all?
Oh yeah, no, I'm still up.
Yeah,
I've just lost a lot more than I've taken home. That's for sure. Unrealized gains.
I wish I got Bitcoin at that time, because I remember I was a young kid.
It was the first time I bought Bitcoin was at $280.
Wow. I was a young kid. I remember I was like 15 or 16, and I was trying to get drugs off the Silk Road. Yeah. Ironically enough, I was just trying to get weed and I think LSD or something off the Silk Road. And, at that time you had to convert your USD into crypto. And I was like 15 or 16 and the tech was new and I wasn't like Coinbase, the most technologically savvy kid. And this was really before Coinbase. And I think, here's what I think. I never ended up getting anything off the Silk Road, but I do remember doing the crypto conversion. I can't remember how I did it. But it was in a Silk Road account where it popped up on my thing. You have 10 Bitcoin, because this is when it was like, under $100, under $50. And I think I remember it had 2 of those coins.
Damn, you were going into business then, huh?
I probably, I lost however much that was. At one point, Bitcoin was 60K. That's over $100,000 that I could have had. But again, I wish I kept those Bitcoin or had access to them, because, I mean, God.
I gifted people Bitcoin and they lost them, like full Bitcoins. I gifted people and they lost them too.
Gift me with one.
Back in the
I sold Bitcoin. I did some dumb stuff. I sold Bitcoin about $100. I sold it at 1,000.
Oh yeah, no, we've all.
Wow.
I did videos basically explaining all the mistakes I made in hopes that people don't make the same mistakes. That's basically what I do.
One of my boys in England was a nut, and I sent him like a whole Bitcoin, and I'm like, I really hope this doesn't turn out bad. And he was running a computer. He's like, dude, I'm almost gonna set my house on fire. This is bad practice, but whatever. Like, because I don't care, because I'm I guess I'm an ANCAP. And he's like, I doubled it. And he doubled it. And I was trying to tell people, I'm like, I doubled a Bitcoin. They're like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, go to work. I'm like, no, I doubled a Bitcoin. And people are like looking at me. They're probably like, you're a nerd. Go away.
Yeah.
Oh, look, listen. That's amazing. They're like, what's mining? Like, I'm like, not with a pickaxe. Like, actually mine, with a thing. So I doubled the Bitcoin, but then I sold some of it. I still have some Bitcoin. Then I sold it. Then I got a low price. Then I sold that. Then I sold Dogecoin.
I've sold every top of every market that I've been involved in.
Then I got Shiba Inu, and I'm like, Shiba's going to hit $1 and I'm going to be a billionaire.
Shib's
dope.
Oh,
God. He was talking about this. I was like, dude, Shiba, it's a scam. It's a fraud coin. It's okay to dabble in a few shit coins. Yes,
because they're easy to get rid of. Like,
but
if you need to blow
your life savings
some cash, you don't want to sell your good coins. It's easy to blow some shit coins.
Kareem put his life savings in Shiba Inu.
No, that's
he
bad.
Lost it all. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But seriously,
but maybe it wouldn't.
I told him. I remember I was like, dude, I don't trust those coins. Like, the only coin, the altcoin, shitcoin, if you want to call it, that I ever dabbled in was Dogecoin, simply from the analyzing the connection between Dogecoin and Elon Musk. And at this time during COVID, there was quite literally billions, if not trillions of dollars being pumped into the economy from stimulus. You had, over 2 million people start investing and trading on Robinhood, who had extra money laying around from the stimulus.
That was a big year.
And he was able to move the markets, because I saw he was able to move the markets with Tesla and other stocks. He would talk about them and they would, their price would move. And then he started pumping up Dogecoin. And I was like, listen, whether I like Elon Musk or whether I don't, his views hold influence. And sure enough, he pumped Dogecoin up to like 60 cents, and I made like $4,000, and I was like shitting myself, because it was.
Yeah. Did you pull it out?
I didn't pull all of it.
Did you sell?
Yeah, I sold. Well, I sold close to the peak, maybe like $10 from the peak that it hit, and I had Dogecoin early, but way before it was even it was like at like, I don't know, 0.000, like half a cent or something.
Yeah,
and I had like. I put $200 or $300 in, and that gave me like, I don't know, 100 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or no, maybe more like 900 or 1,000. And then I sold some because I was like, this coin ain't doing anything. And then it went up a little bit. And then I was like, I'll buy some because this coin seems to have some hype around it. And then I kept them. And then, I ended up selling them once they hit like 50 cents or something.
I had Jeff,
do you want to buy some Yeet? I bet you Yeet will go to $1.
I haven't been paying attention last like 6 months at all.
Is that a coin?
New cat coin. There's all these. I keep hearing these new coins, and it's just like, oh boy,
they're all scams.
You want to go to Pancake Swap and get it?
Nah, I don't think so.
You can get some Yeet.
Yeah, but dude, when I made a lot of money off SHIB, like I was bucking around like 400% in a day. Sometimes I was just like, woo! Like I had like $80 turn into something insane, and I kept like trading it into better stuff, and I was just like, I can't believe I made all this. But then I didn't sell the top of this last one, that's for sure. I sure messed that one up. We all did.
I will say this: the DeFi space, I think, in NFTs is where it's at. So let's see where that goes.
With the gaming, play to earn games are going to be the biggest thing to ever happen to crypto.
That's why
the DeFi stuff is amazing, but the gaming stuff
DeFi
is the real.
Part of that. GameFi is a DeFi asset.
So when you're talking about gaming, what do you mean by that? Like coins related to gaming?
Play to earn. You sit there and you
play to earn. You there are games that are coming out that you earn crypto while you play. But right now, all the games are like Pokemon V 1.0. They're really bad. But in the future, they're going to be Call of Duty and all these other games. So getting into these right now is the first round was like the last big bull run was DeFi, and this next one is going to be gaming. Just go on to CoinMarketCap/gaming and just start buying those. Any of them, doesn't even matter.
So there's particular gaming coins, is what you're saying?
There are dudes that spend years researching which coins to buy, and there are dudes that buy any of them, and sometimes the dudes that just buy any of them make more money than the other guys. So you just need to be exposed to that market, because that market's going to be crazy. And then find micro cap coins. Don't buy all the main ones at the top, because those don't move much. The tiny ones at the bottoms move a lot more. They're just riskier. So make sure you have a well-balanced wallet, and the money you're spending on these because these games, and like I said earlier, these games we have now suck balls, and none of them are going to be around much longer. They're going to be new ones, like this. But you want to treat these gaming coins like shit coins. You want to buy them and sell them when they're up, and you don't want to get your heart attached to them because they're all.
So what are some gaming coins? I've never heard of gaming coins. Do you have examples?
Axie Infinity is the biggest one.
Okay.
I've reported on that.
Go ahead, Kareem.
Yeah, I got scammed going over to Axie Infinity, so I never went back.
But here's one thing.
They had a MetaMask scam. What's that?
They did. I mean, things are going to mess up. It's the free market. I mean, it's
I lost like $5,000 on it, though. I was pretty pissed. Wow. And they didn't do anything about it. And it was their fault. It was their glitch.
I get it. You're going to really love what the Federal Reserve is going to do.
Yeah, Robinhood did that to me. I would have made like way more money off the Dogecoin, but they froze the freaking coin.
No, if you ever use a centralized exchange, they're always going to freeze it. They freeze it so they make the first move, and you get secondary moves. And every exchange does it, and no one knows it. They're like, every bull run, everyone's crying about the exchanges, and I'm like, I've been telling you guys this for 10 years. Like
these
exchanges, yeah, of course. So but even then, they get expensive. You want to make all your moves before the bull runs, because in the bull runs, that's when everything gets way too expensive to move around. So you want to be ready before the bull run. At least at the halvening, you want to have all your shit ready and just sit on it. And the second it's parabolic, and you're like, holy crap, that's when you pull it out. The second you're in euphoria, when you're just like, you're looking at your numbers and you're just like, oh my God, just pull it out. Don't even don't listen to anyone, just
listen. Not exactly, because I've studied this space a lot. I'm not super in it, but there's a couple things. One, what gives you utility in GameFi is usually an NFT that acts as your avatar in your way in the game. But why I say DeFi and GameFi is a lot of these tokens have one thing that Bitcoin cannot do. Well, maybe, I don't know. people say it can't. You can stake the coin. All to me staking is actually getting interest off of it, like you would at a bank. Like you give the bank some money, and before you used to get 6 or 7.
Are you talking about a particular coin? You're talking about these gaming or these DeFi coins? Is that what you're talking about?
Coin, a lot of these DeFi coins, and I've got a couple. They have the ability to stake, meaning.
And how do you do that? Is that on a particular app or?
Yeah, you got to go to the website, and it's unless you have the ability, like on ledgers, you can stake in your wallet, which is very rare, but it's only 4 different coins. And staking anywhere else, you're basically loaning the coin back to them, and they're giving you a little bit interest on it. That's all it is.
Say is essentially like interest, like you put interest in the bank and you get some back because they're using your utility.
How much is the interest? How much are is it monthly?
It changes all the time for any different coin. It's different exchanges, different coins get different amounts on different exchanges.
Yeah, different ecosystems.
Sometimes you can get up to 12%. I have 2 coins in my ledger getting 12 and 16% nonstop every single day. It's insane. That's really the way to do it on your ledger device. It's Polkadot. Polkadot is the one. Polkadot, Tezos, MakerDAO. But you can get really high returns on those. But I mean, that's shit I did like 2 years ago. Right now is the worst time to stake. Because the exchanges are trying to sell right now. And so it's like when you watch an exchange for several cycles, you start to see their behavior and how they move things around and how they screw you and how they try and screw everyone. And all these exchanges, they leave their terms of service wide open so they can just change all kinds of stuff on you. But if you stake at a certain time, it's high, and leave it in there, that never changes on most of the exchanges. But like I said, Polkadot's a good one, Tezos. And then I feel like on Coinbase wallet, you can stake on there. But I only recommend
I think I've done that
on decentralized exchanges and in your wallet. Leaving it in exchange these days. I mean, a year ago I would have told you a different story, but we just had a ton of exchanges take a dump. My girl, 2 exchanges, like my family, like got decimated by a couple of these exchanges.
Did they get raped by Sam Bankman-Fried? We can talk about it.
No FTX. I would have never let anyone.
Okay, was it Binance? Because I heard Binance is crumbling too.
No, Celsius and BlockFi. I was a big proponent of BlockFi for a long time, but I got out. BlockFi gave loans, collateralized loans. You give them your Bitcoin, they give you cash, and you could yield farm, basically buy more crypto with that, and then just wait for the market to come up, and basically your collateral pays for itself. But they got shut down. They can't do it anymore. And then after they lost the ability to give the loans, they went under basically. So now it's like not my keys, not my crypto. Now we're back to those times where it's like, all right, get your money off exchanges, like buy on exchanges and then take it off and put it in your wallet. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but it's absolutely necessary. And then, like I said earlier, make all your moves before the halvening, because once the halvening starts, like if you got ETH or any of these DeFi coins, are impossible to move during the bull season. They're so expensive to move that they basically invalidate themselves.
Two things on that. One, do you think we're currently entering a bull market? And the second question would be, so from what I'm hearing from you and what I've heard from Kareem and others, crypto seems to be not necessarily a Ponzi scheme, but sort of the old pendulum swinging game where you get these coins. There's a lot of hype behind them in the beginning. If you're smart, you would buy these coins while they're cheap before the hype really starts, because you can kind of guess certain coins in certain industries or certain types of coins are going to blow up at one point or another for whatever news or whatever technology it is. You get in the coins, and then as soon as you see your profits, you sell almost immediately, because these coins tend to go up really high.
Very volatile, yeah. So do you know what the halvening is? When I've been using the word,
I don't. I've heard that.
Okay.
What is
halvening? Oh, you're talking about Bitcoin going down. Yeah.
So this is the one thing that I tell people, and then their minds blow finally about crypto. So the halvening is a event that happens every 4 years. It's scheduled into the software of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the main currency of the whole blockchain ecosystem, right? Every 4 years, it starts a bull cycle around the time this halvening happens. What the halvening is the difficulty to mine Bitcoin goes up 50%, or it used to go up 50%. I think it's going less now, but it basically becomes more difficult to mine Bitcoin, therefore making it more scarce, thus raising the price, thus having a bull run. It's not a matter of if there's going to be a bull run, because they happen no matter what. As long as Bitcoin exists, there will be a bull run, and you can set your clock, you can set an alarm to it. And if by the time the halvening, if you're invested right now, we're in an accumulation phase. We are not in a bull run. We are still bouncing off the bottom for a little bit, but we're nearing the halvening is next year. And so right now is an accumulation phase where you want to be buying at any price whatsoever. You do not want to wait ever to buy crypto. You want to do it when you have money, even if it's $20, because that $20 can turn into $600 once the bull run comes. So any chance you get, you go online and all these Facebookers are like, oh, wait, there's going to be another dip. And that's like the complete wrong way of doing it. You need to be buying at any chance you can right now. As long as you have a steady stream of money, you should be buying at any price, because the gains that you get, completely invalidate whether you bought Bitcoin $100 less than it was yesterday. When you're in the gains, it completely doesn't matter. What's that?
Funny enough, I'm looking at Binance just to see what was going on.
Yeah, I used Binance for years. They're kind of the last exchange that I really used outside of crypto.com as far to like trade with, like an actual trading. And that's kind of, oh no, what am I talking about? I'm not talking about Binance. Yeah, that's crazy. Binance is having problems. BNB was the biggest coin. But BNB was like almost more popular than Bitcoin like 5 years ago. BNB was huge.
BNB's huge. You know why?
Yeah.
I mean, DeFi. Everything is on the BSC now.
Finance chain, all that shit, because ETH got expensive, so everyone went to Binance.
Just kick it on the BAT20 now.
How is that not? Oh, it's just these companies. They don't plan right.
My problem is also NFTs now. Solana's not doing very well, but I'd like to run my own niche NFT market eventually.
Yeah, all right. You and everyone else.
No, I'm gonna make it work, man.
Yeah.
I'm an ACAP man and ACAP stand. Do I have you on Facebook, by the way?
I'm not sure. You should check out the show. You should come up on the show. The Paul and Slave show is an open panel. Anyone can come up at any time. And then bring, like, you can come up and challenge. Like, I tell people on my Facebook, I'll come talk shit. I'm on every day. I'm alive. You can come up in the chat, talk to me about anything I talk about.
Is that you, Paul and Slave?
No, Paul's the guy who runs the show, but he has a panel and a chat that's so Paul's show, like if you're having a bad day, you could go up on Paul's show and talk about it, and you instantly have a support group. Like there's a bunch of really interesting dudes up there. There's a lot of like experts in common law, and Paul's a plateless guy, like drives without plates. And talks to the cops and gets let go because of his, knowledge of the law, basically, and his way of explaining it. But he got big because of it. He got arrested a couple times and had some big videos and got a big following. But his channel, as far as a form of media, is really amazing. Like we've had people, have their kids come up, their adult children come up on the panel and talk about issues face to face with their dads. that they've had their whole lives. It creates kind of a neutral place where people can't get too emotional because they're on a panel being watched by 300 people, and on a panel full of people that know bullshit when they see it. I go up there, me and my girlfriend, when we have problems, we go up there and talk about it. There's a lot of it's kind of, Paul's kind of loud and abrasive, and he's a tough love kind of guy. But if you know that, because a lot of people, I've tried to get some of my friends to come on the show, and they're just like, that guy seems really mean, and it's like, no, he's just interesting.
Who are we talking about?
Paulie. You said you weren't a fan.
Who? Paul
Enslaved.
I'm not sure who that is.
Okay, never mind. I thought you said you knew who he was. You heard of him or something.
Is he an anarchist or something?
Yeah, he's like it's really hard to explain this channel and him, because it's hard to explain it in so many words. It's basically, there's like real-time therapy going on, but then Paul's a comedian. Like, he's really funny, but he just he's just a book nerd, and I can't even explain it, dude. But it's
What's
a way
his
better
YouTube?
than Facebook. It's way better than Facebook. The YouTube is Paul Enslaved. My YouTube is at Jeffrey Phillips. I'm on Paul's show every day. So the show's every day for sometimes up to 6 hours. So it's like, if it's like something you kind of always know. Okay, well, like I could always go talk if I have to. If you have anything you want to talk about, stuff's going on. Like, even our conversation, this conversation would happen on that show. It's a
so he would let us on. Is what you're saying?
Up to 20 at any time, 10 people, and any time you can go up.
Is it live?
Live.
That's awesome.
It's a live open. It's amazing, dude. It's really cool. I watched for about a week before I really understood what was going on, and I was like, this is one of the coolest things I've seen. And there's like always several hundred people in a chat, and there's usually like the usual suspects are there. But I'm up there every day. If you want to come talk shit to me about anything, or
so when is it? When does it happen?
Sometimes it's often twice a day. It's always kind of at different times. You just kind of want to hit the notification, and it'll pop up, and you'll go in and you'll be watching on YouTube, and there'll be the chat, and then Paul puts the StreamYard link in there if you want to come up. But you guys would love it. Like, this is like, this is the kind of conversations it's really fun. But it's a bunch of different dudes. There's dudes from Europe. There's a lot of dudes from Canada for some reason. It's a big panel, or it's a big group of people, and we're all kind of, truthers. A lot of these guys are actually still quite status. I am kind of, I feel like I found his group to show those guys a little bit more, because they're halfway there. They're kind of like, a lot of them are sovereign citizen types, like these kind of guys that are like into talking shit to cops, but they aren't like Ron Paul.
They're minarchists, maybe?
Yeah, there's a lot of minarchists on there. Yeah. So it's been fun being
my friend, honestly. Do you know Justin Pedini, actually?
Justin came on last night. I've debated Justin 6 or 7 times. Justin is crying in my messages right now because I'm telling him to leave me alone. Because this dude hassles me so much. Justin is like, I love the guy, but Justin. I can't
I've
deal
seen him
with
post
him
a lot.
anymore.
And
like,
Justin.
he's been like I'm like, Justin, please just give me like a week off. And he'll be like, he'll post about me a bunch on his Facebook, and then he'll start harassing my girlfriend, like talking to her as if she's me. And I'm just like, Justin, you got to give me a break, dude. And then Justin kind of got taken advantage of by Larkin Rose, and I made a video about it, and the video's pretty did the rounds. He's a local libertarian thought leader.
Yeah, me and Larkin. Here's the funny thing. I don't know where you stand on that. But here, I love the agorists. They have really good viewpoints, and even like me,
I'm not really into Larkin's whole cult thing.
I like
at all.
He's done a great job with.
He's got some good one-liners, but yeah,
Statism is a religion. Really, kind of opens people because I'm like, look, this is a religion. They're like, no, it's not. I don't worship Biden. I'm like, you kind of do. Look at the inauguration. Look at all the things. Oh, that's my team. It's my team. I'm like, to me, this is even more dangerous than actual religions because there's no even value system to it other than this is my team. My team wins at any cost. And the right does it too a little bit. I went on Larkin's stream though after Joe Jorgen's after the election. And I said, like, I think one alternative is you can vote for Joe Jorgensen. Not saying she's the best libertarian or she's even a cap. And they're like, she's a statist. I'm like, I get that. But I want to move the Overton window a little bit. The biggest issue that we discuss, I guess, between ANCAPs and agorists is I say, look, you have a political system. It's not perfect. It's kind of crappy. They screw you over. I get it. They mess corrupt. It's corrupt. We saw what happened in Arizona. We saw what happens with stuff.
There tends to be some irregularities and maybe at worst some fraud. And
weird stuff happens.
Yes,
and
I'll say misinformation. If there's anything that cheats you out of elections, winning elections, it's the media and big tech that censors opinions that could possibly push forward to push a certain message, right? A certain narrative, a certain type of agenda gets pushed and protected by media and big tech.
Even that.
Do you guys believe that the whole voting process is like functional and like actually
I think it's functional, but I think it's functional in a dysfunctional manner.
I think it's
meaning
kind of
that it works, but we could get it to work better.
I would say this. It's really rigged. Like even I talked to Republicans and I showed them my Eric Gerhardt thing and I've showed them like, look, Fetterman's really bad and Oz is really bad.
Horrible.
And they agreed, but they're like, look, listen. And here's the funny part. Even Republicans who agree 100% with me and don't, they're like, look, Kareem, but we got an organization here. We have this. Like big banks, unfortunately, donate to the two. So it is very rigged. It's very not in your favor because like one special interest group is going to say, hey, 100 million here. And then you're trying to just like, hey, I can run a Facebook page. Well, someone can beat you there. That being said, I think you can still win local elections. I think if you work hard enough with the tide turning, people just getting sick of these, I think you can possibly win some state elections. And if you're really lucky, maybe in a few years win federal elections if you really want to go that far. And that's my thing. I still say, look, I'm guessing you know Jeff Berwick. I'm guessing you do.
Yeah.
He made a good point. If the political system still exists, might as well use it. It's a tool. Not to say that I want to do it infinitely. I want to use it so I can get rid of it and buy time, but I'm not against using it. That being said, I also respect like people like Larkin Rose. Mark Passio does amazing work on what on earth is happening, and I do respect that point of view too. So maybe it is a waste of time. I don't know. I could be wrong.
After what they did to Rob Paul in 2012, I just kind of was like, okay, well, this is just a reality TV show to distract us from the fact that we don't have any choice whatsoever. And I just couldn't.
What did they do to Ron Paul exactly?
Well, he won the popular, but then they just disbarred, like they just didn't let him run, like do the act. He had like
in a presidential election or the primary?
He had enough delegates to run, but the GOP just said, "Oh no, you're not. We're not going to choose you to do it." They just like.
So did he?
They just didn't. They
even get a
unseated
chance
all
to
his.
Become president.
They unseated his delegates with like some law technicality, and so they didn't even allow him to actually
run.
Like he destroyed the debates, dude.
That's what I thought.
Like 7,000 kids at UCLA chanting his name while his opponent couldn't get 10 dudes in a town hall meeting. Like dude was killing it, and
so he was winning the debates in the primary. It looked like he had a lot of delegates, and then they basically shut him out from even winning the Republican debates.
I'm not sure he was like winning the debates as far as like the media was concerned, but he was poning everyone.
We're talking
like
about with voters.
Yeah. No, he was in New Hampshire, and he said that line about legalizing heroin. He's like, you guys think if we legalize heroin, you guys are all going to go do heroin? And they were all clapping, and it wasn't New Hampshire. It was like some super conservative place. Like he had like everyone was agreeing with it. Like the guys that were supposed to be debating against him were being like, well, I agree with Ron
he got
Paul,
more donations from the military than any other president in modern history.
Dude, I gave him money. I didn't have money to give him. Like I went to one of his meet and greet, like breakfasts, I was way into
I met him once.
But so when they completely when they unseated his delegates, I was like, oh, so I just spent all this energy for nothing. So I'm definitely never paying attention to this again.
It seems as though that the Republican Convention Committee at that time probably stopped Ron Paul from being the nominee. Because like you said, I wasn't that old, but I remember hearing about it, that he probably would have won the primary, there was a good chance he could have won the primary.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And they cheated him out just like they cheated Bernie, and just like they've cheated probably many different people.
Do you know the audit the Fed bill that Bernie and Ron Paul were pushing?
Yeah,
I've heard of it.
Do you know what happened to that? No, what happened? Bernie gutted it. Like,
oh my God.
Literally, Ron Paul handed it to Bernie to go submit it, and Bernie gutted it and submitted it, took all the teeth out of it and submitted it. And that would have been, dude, that was the audit the Federal Reserve
and it
bill.
Passed.
No, it passed with no teeth,
passed
with no internal audit, no real audit. No, I don't even think. I don't recall, but he basically made it no longer an audit. Like it was called the audit the Fed bill, but he changed it so much that it no longer audited the Fed the bill.
I see what you're saying.
And like, why would Bernie Sanders of all people do that if he wasn't completely connected to, like that would have helped every single person on the planet, literally,
and it would have won with his base
person on the planet. Yeah,
it would have won with his base. So Ron Paul puts forth this legislation, writes it, has the the aspects in it that are going to audit the Fed, and Bernie Sanders takes the bill, manipulates it, and then passes it. So you're essentially what we're assuming is that some big donor or some Democratic elite establishment member basically said, cut the stuff out of the bill, and told him to do it. I mean, there's no way Bernie Sanders would do that. Listen, this is the thing about Bernie Sanders. He's got no spine. He's a slug. He has absolutely no spine. He has no legs, and he is weak and feckless. But at heart, I do believe that he genuinely does want better for the working class, that he really does want to help people, that he does want to overhaul the healthcare system, and that he would be willing to work with Republicans probably more than any other Democrat would, but he's largely controlled by the Democratic establishment. And I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. I lived in Central America for a while when I was working with Rudkowski. I went to Central. I was running We Are Change, so I could do that abroad. So I did, and I was there during the whole Bernie thing, and there were all these like European kids coming through town and wanting to talk to me about Bernie. They're like, "Oh, are you a fan of Bernie?" And I'm like, "Nope." And they're like, "Oh my God! Oh, so you're a Republican?" Nope. Like they're just confusing these kids, confusing the shit out of it. Wait, we don't understand. What do you mean? And like I had good arguments.
Dude, Bernie had a lot of fans, dude. Yeah, he had a lot of people that really liked him. And it was mainly, the people who simply would have voted for him simply because of his legalizing of marijuana. I mean, that alone was extremely high, and that was the thing that in the culture needed to be done. That something I wish Trump would have done, and maybe if he wins again, he will do.
I got a different perspective on that. So California, right? I live in California. I actually grew up in Santa Cruz, which was the first place that was legal to sell weed. There was a hotel there back in 1996.
That's
right?
A while ago.
Yeah. So medical marijuana was legalized in California, right? Gotcha. And it was gray. There was not a single law on the books to throw a person in jail for having marijuana. There was no taxes for selling, growing.
Wow, that's crazy.
Hold on. Hold on. So this is how California's been since the 90s. So then they completely I'm sorry. For a large period of time, that wasn't the case. But then in 2006, I think they decriminalized, and then all the laws were gone, but there still was no tax. So then recently, the idiots of California legalized it. Now there's all new laws on the books, all new taxes. You can't buy weed that doesn't have a $13 tax attached to it. The quality of the weed has gone down.
At the dispensaries, they have a lot of added fees.
Yes, it's almost too expensive. So because of that, the black market has come back. And so now we're getting people getting arrested and getting thrown in jail and people getting raided all over for the first time in 10 years.
And California.
The idiots of California were all, oh, yeah, let's legalize it instead of just leaving it how it was. Anyone could get a subscription to get weed in California. You go and tell them, I've had ADD my whole life, or something like that. I have glaucoma. It's hard for me to sleep. It's hard for me to eat anything, and they give it to you.
I never saw it from that perspective, though. That I agree with you. Actually, now that you're saying that, I didn't think about it from that perspective.
Because those laws, perspective from the government, laws, there's a bunch of bullshit in them every time.
You're right. You're absolutely right. In the sense, I think maybe the goal should be decriminalization to get the drug, the substance, away from the hands of government and away from the hands of the state. And I really didn't. I have never thought about that in that way, because I've always thought, legalize it. Just make these drugs so everyone get them. But technically, more people would get them, and more people would find it beneficial if it was decriminalized. They had access to it, but it wasn't regulated to the degree that you got to pay taxes on it. That you have to. There's so many added fees, and not to mention regulations. Like you said, they're going to lower the quality. I mean, that's a really good point.
That tax pays for a special task force of police.
Oh, yeah.
That do enforcement,
Hey, robots now. Hey, new scum got, as they call
that tax money goes to the ATF. It goes to the FBI. It goes to all sorts of government entities.
The worst, and it goes to dropping bombs on children in other countries.
That's
eventually.
How's your emperor new scum? Is he a nice guy?
What's that?
How's your emperor?
I can't pay attention to California politics if I plan on living here, and my kids are here, so I have to live here.
All right. Well, I got to wrap it up, guys. Is there anything you want to share or shout out from your channel before we end it here?
YouTube at Jeffrey Phillips. Every day I'm on the Paul and Slave show on YouTube. If you can come, it's a free open live panel. You guys definitely come up. Anyone can come up. It's a lot of fun. It's very funny. It's
shoot
very
me a message
informative.
the next time it goes on. Shoot me a message the next time it happens.
It's probably on right now.
Okay.
Well, cool, guys. That was fun. I'd love to come back sometime.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. Go ahead,
awesome.
Kareem.
All right. Well, you can find me at Kareem for Liberty on Twitter, also Kareem6633, and you can find me on Facebook at Kareem M. Maize. Also go to the LP Mises Caucus if you want to further the ideals of Murray Rothbard and keep the Ron Paul revolution going.
Yeah, and it was a great conversation, as always, with Kareem and with you, Jeffrey. We talked about a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of things on here I kind of want to expand on that we didn't get a chance to expand on the next one. And I want to talk to you, Jeffrey, about like we talked about in the beginning, dieting, the carnivore world, the vegan world, and some of the shared dogmas of both that I believe is ultimately hurting the nutrition industry and hurting regular people, because regular people are just trying to formulate their opinion on what's good and what's wrong. And you get these, I would say charlatans on both ends of the spectrum. My diet's the right way, and if you eat anything out of this diet, then you're going to be hurt and you're going to be physically ill. Eat all meat, eat all vegetables. It's very it's very group thinking, very tribal. It's very tribal. But yeah, as always, for anyone watching, like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. The subscribing really helps. And yeah, I appreciate it. You guys good? Do you want to say anything else before we end it?
No.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. All right. Take it easy. I will see you guys in the next video.